Morning, everybody. This is the September 20th, 2017 morning meeting of the Portland City Council. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, everybody. There it is. I got it. Welcome to the September 20th morning session of the Portland City Council. Carla, please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Here.
Udaly? Fritz?
Here.
Fish?
Here.
Wheeler?
Here. The purpose of council meetings is to do the city's business, including hearing from the community on issues of concern. In order for us to hear from everyone and to give due consideration to matters before the council, we must all endeavor to preserve order and decorum of these meetings. To make sure that the process is clear for everyone, I want to review some of the basic guidelines which I hope will help everyone feel comfortable, welcome, respected, and safe at the meeting, and also to ensure that decorum is maintained. There are two opportunities for public participation. First, we have an opportunity for people to sign up for communications to briefly speak about any subjects they wish to address. These items must be scheduled in advance with the clerk's office. Second, people may sign up for testimony on the first readings of reports, resolutions, and ordinances. If you sign up, your testimony must address the matter being considered at the time. Please state your name for the record. We don't need your address. If you're a lobbyist, council rules require you to disclose that information. If you're here representing an organization, please identify that organization. Individuals have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, the yellow light is going to light up, and when your time is done, the red light will come on. Conduct that disrupts the meeting, for example, shouting or interrupting others' testimony or interrupting during council deliberations, will not be tolerated. People who disrupt the meeting face ejection from the meeting. If there is a disruption, I'll issue a warning that if any further disruption occurs, anyone who's disrupting the meeting will be subject to ejection for the remainder of the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave the meeting after being ejected will be subject to arrest for trespass. If you want to show your support for something, thumbs up is great. If you don't like something you hear, thumbs down. The bottom line is this. It is a shocking day if you agree with everything everybody says at the dais. So let's just be respectful and consider it an opportunity to learn when we hear perspectives and views that are different for our own. So without further ado, Carla, please call the first communications item.
Item 1025, request of Mimi Gurman to address council regarding crosswalks, KKK, and cops.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is a letter, Mayor, to you. Dear Ted, we're done. Our relationship is over. I can't go on pretending that one day you'll find your balls. You won't. You can't. The cops took them, and they won't let you have them back. You're emotionally paralyzed by fear, and I can't be in a relationship with a guy who fears the cops so much he won't even agree to fight for a crosswalk with a proper light on Fessenden, a street just itching to take the life of a kid or a woman in a wheelchair. I can't continue on with this abusive relationship where in your powerlessness you create fear for those more vulnerable than you are to the cops. Shame on you, Ted. I don't fear you. I don't fear the cops. You're all a bunch of abusers who need to get run out of town. Hashtag thugs. You're thugs. You'd rather spend $200,000 on keeping me out of City Hall than you would putting an ADA ramp, parking spot, and elevator in at City Hall just to show your might and muscle over those in need. I get it. I've been punched in the gut by your decision since January, day one of your charade as a mayor who ran on a platform to house the houseless and create police transparency. You abused our houseless with your games and injure and kill our community with your cops. This sadistic nature comes out with the lies you tell. I tried to connect with you when people were freezing to death last winter. You showed us then that you were a coward, and worse, a coward with a microphone who did nothing more than tell the abused you were going to help them. They died waiting for help. You are feckless and afraid to move. You can't go back and you can't stand still. If the thunder don't get you, then the lightning will. And the KKK fiasco. It started with your refusal to talk about Nazi cop Kruger. That's where your fear sets in. We should all be afraid of the KKK, but that fear should charge us forward to get them out of our city. You would prefer to give bus passes to white supremacists so that the members of our community end up slain on our transit system. Your attempts at everything have been feeble. The side of you that feigns strength speaks out, but the abused side of you runs away. You are weak. You are powerless to the cops. They know that. We know that. And you know that. But you try to keep a good game face with the Portland liberals who do love you so. Look what I did. Look what I did. Well, we're looking, and you've done nothing positive. You even lied to the families whose kids were shot by cops, pretending you'd somehow find the truth when all you did was give the cops $4 million on top of their raise for live ammo for target practice. Man, that was cold. You've stolen money directed specifically to house the houseless. You've allowed sweeps in the houseless instead. This is abusive. So, Ted, I'm sure you'll accept this Dear John letter. You've seen me as the problem all along. You've laughed in my face. You've thrown me out the door. You've thrown my friends out the door and sprayed their faces with pepper spray. You've lied. You've chastised. You've accused me of being wrong. But I've never been your problem. I've only held some answers to your problems, but you chose to beat the hell out of reality and twist this city into a scene from Gotham in Batman and Robin, and you are the Joker. All these deaths are on you. The suffering is on you. There's more, but I'll email it to you since my time is done.
I think I get the point. Thank you. Good afternoon. Next item.
Item 1026, request of Joe Walsh to address council regarding communications.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Joe Walsh. I represent Individuals for Justice. I would ask for some extra time on the ADA because I'm struggling with speech. For the record, my name is Joe Walsh, and I represent Individuals for Justice. Sometimes I run into people who ask me why I get so angry at these meetings. Here are just 3 minutes of my reasons. All 5 of you think you know more than the people of Portland and vote against us often. The last mayor and you, Ted Wheeler, react to confrontation by using your gang of cops and G4S thugs against the very people who are on the street trying to bring some comfort to the most vulnerable among us. All of you campaign using sugar words, but after being elected, you care only for the next election. Betrayal is very high here. Often, when we want to talk about a current event, we can't because you have shut down any important discussion by pre-signing, and communications may take up to 6 weeks to finally get to speak. 5, we have asked, suggested, and finally demanded that you spend a week per month on the road, holding city council meeting in different parts of the city, say maybe about 7 p.m. This would allow participation by the working people. You have $258 million by a bond measure, and you were doing nothing until the media did a story on you lack of even attending meetings. Shame on you, Ted Wheeler. We have thousands of people on our streets. The other day, a person gave me an interesting compliment. She said something like this: Joe, I used to think that you were a little bit crazy, but then I started to pay attention to City Hall, and now I know why you are so outraged. You can pass me off, but remember what comes after me is a lot worse than a 75-year-old veteran who believes in nonviolence. The young are much more aggressive than we are, and it would be wise for you to listen to what we say. We ask nothing of you except to do your jobs. I have 2 more requests for your consideration. When a person offers opinions, we would like them to state for the record if they take any monies from the city, state, federal government. We'd like to know who's being paid and by who. Nonprofits should acknowledge that they come before you to make themselves unemployed. They work to solve and resolve the problem and not perpetuate it. I had to invent a word that explains very smart, decent people doing stupid and evil things. The word is Watunamas. And this council is full of Matunamai.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your attention.
You bet. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 1027, request of Floyd Jones to address council regarding Portland Water Bureau issues.
Good morning. Welcome.
Floyd Jones with Friends of the Reservoirs. Just a couple of items. I came here on July 19th when you were voting on the procurement item that allowed contracts to be brought up to $500,000 and in essence $750,000 because most Water Bureau contracts do increase by 25%, which they're allowed to do without bringing it back to council. On that date, I also read to you verbatim from the utility board document that said that most projects brought to the utility board or major projects are brought fait accompli. And when I wasn't able to respond after I left, Commissioner Fish, you represented to 2 of your colleagues and to the cable TV audience that I misrepresented that statement from the utility board. I read verbatim. I subsequently sent you all an email. The utility board subsequently sent you that very letter, and it was subsequently published in the Tribune. I think it's very sad. The Water Bureau has a long history of attacking citizens, who don't support these major projects, and it's really sad to see if a commissioner is following suit. I also wanted to speak about the August 2nd vote to add chemicals to our water. And, it's really only in an Orwellian world that the Water Bureau can represent to you that there's a public process. We've had big public processes in the past. And a downtown room, the Portland Utility Review Board room, filled with Water Bureau PR and absent any public isn't a public process. An online board where Water Bureau employees are the main people who submit comments isn't a meaningful public process. Other utilities, so we are on a countdown. Those of you who were here years ago when we had this hearing and we kept hearing about the ticking clock. Well, yes, we are now to the end of pure Bull Run water and for no good reason. Since that hearing, I've asked twice in writing from the Water Bureau to present me with a document that shows, or just to not a document, to tell me whether they've sent to you and sent to the utility board information that substantiates their hypothetical benefits from filtration. They presented that to you, and I remember you're laughing at that, saying, isn't this convenient that the numbers add up to $100 million? They've not yet answered. It's a simple question. Did you send information to the utility board? Did you send it to city council? And then in August, it wasn't just that vote that was a bad vote. You also voted to give again CH2M Hill another, now they call it not an infrastructure master plan, they call it a supply plan. So this is a 2000 report, MWH Global, CH2M Hill, they outlined their long list of projects for which they wish to receive future contracts. Now they're going to get them again, and they've all changed names. So this afternoon or later this morning, you'll see Symantec, that's MWH Global. Jacobs has bought out CH2M Hill. They're not new companies. It's the same corporations that are getting all these contracts. The middle class is suffering. You need to do something to lower rates. At the last utility board, they said, no, we're not going to make any changes to our budget to accommodate filtration. That's not what they told you when they were here. So you need to take a look at that.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate your coming in. Next item, please.
Item 1028, request of Jimmy Wittenberg to address council regarding control of the city by developers and builders, traffic congestion, and speeding.
Well,
Morning, sir.
I'm Jim Wittenberg from Portland, mainly the last 50 years, but I have been a few years in other cities around the country, about 6 other ones.
Thank
But I'd forgotten I'd signed up for this. I am leaving tomorrow at 8:20 on the Amtrak, and I'll not see you folks again, so you'll be through with me for good. But I have just a few things to say before I go. I don't want to forget this. The last mayor was running for office, and something that stood out in my travels was, he said, "I love this city," on the back of it. And I've never heard any of you say, "I love this city," or "I love Portland." Maybe you have, but I've never heard it. If I was a commissioner, I'd get up every morning and I'd say, "I love this city. I can hardly wait to get to work for it." As much as I'm being paid, and as much adulation as I get from people in the city, you should love this city. This should be your crowning thing every morning, and that's why I've always loved it. But Charlie, he did some things I didn't like, but at least he said, "I love this city." I wish we could all do that. That's my wish for you. Secondly, I found in my closet, cleaning out my apartment to vacate it, some things which are really great. There's a cartoon here by Dewsbury, which I really love. It's kind of entails my life. This is my best friend up in Seattle, where I'm going to stay tomorrow night. And this is Tom Pollard, one of my really good friends, who I helped in his election campaign. And I brought him over to my house, or the Peace House, and we made cheese and fondue together. And I really loved that man and his wife. Finally, I've just got a few reasons why I really choose Seattle over Portland to retire, and I may end up in Montana because of my health. Right now, I'm falling a lot. I fell 3 times this week and tore up this shoulder and elbow and the right hip. I'm just losing my balance all the time now. But the bus system is dangerous in the city. We can see people have died recently on it. And we need to figure out some way to make it a safer system to ride. Social Security office, it's direct monthly payments to your bank account, or you can't get a check anymore. What kind of baloney is that? They threatened to arrest me when I protested up there. They brought the police in, and good Lord, what kind of public agency is this? Mayor, I like all of you guys. There's none of you I don't like. I would tell you if I didn't like you, you'd be the first to know. So that's the way I operate. You always know where I stand. Finally, the treatment of mental health, the newspapers 4 days a week. What kind of a one-horse town as is finding the lack of professional sports, no baseball or football. Again, it's the one who's, and the infill and housing. It's getting so filled up on the east side, I can barely get to the grocery store on my walker. I have to ride around by bus, and it's a dangerous place to be. I hope I get out of here before I get run over. MLK is a terrible street, Grand are terrible streets to try and cross. Broadway is really bad. Broadway and Whitehair are really bad streets. Those are the ones I frequent. That's the ones that I may be killed on. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Safe travels.
You betcha.
Thank you, sir. Next item, please.
Item 1029, request of Scott Fairstrand to address council regarding the homeless and tolerance.
Is Scott here today? Carla, have any items been pulled off the consent agenda?
I have had no request.
Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye, the consent agenda is adopted. First time, certain item, please.
Item 1030, approve funding recommendations made by the Children's Levy Allocation Committee for September 1, 2017 through June 30, 2019.
Commissioner Saltzman.
Thank you, Mayor. The Portland Children's Levy has been in the enviable position of receiving more revenue than we anticipated from our property tax collections. And we have invested that money in some additional programs that we're pleased today to shine a spotlight on a few of these programs that are new to being supported by the Portland Children's Levy. Since 2002, the levy has strengthened our community by helping thousands of children from birth through college reach their potential. We have done this through increasing children's access to proven programs that provide positive early development, school engagement and academic achievement, high school graduation assistance, and family safety and stability services. We are thankful that Portland voters have chosen to make children a priority each time the levy has come before them, creating it in 2002 and overwhelmingly renewing it in 2008 and again in 2013. We're gratified by our community's confidence that the levy is empowering not just children, but parents and caregivers to become more skilled at advocating for their children in their classroom and in their lives. Today, Portland Children's Levy Director Lisa Pellegrino is here to ask council to approve new two-year investments in after-school programs made by the levy's allocation committee, which is the governing body. From September, these investments will run from September this month through June of 2019. These investments will provide safe and high-quality after-school academic and enrichment programs for students throughout the city. So we're pleased that we can accomplish this with a 5% administrative cap so that 95 cents of every dollar goes directly to proven programs and that the levy receives high grades from our annual independent audits. So now I'll turn it over to our director, Lisa Pellegrino.
Thank you, Commissioner Saltzman. That's good? Okay.
There you go.
The green light was on, so I thought I was good to go. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all again. I am Lisa Pellegrino, as Dan Saltzman introduced me, the director of the Children's Levy. And as Dan noted, the allocation committee made the decisions that we're asking you to approve. And just to remind everybody about who sits on the allocation committee, Commissioner Saltzman is the chair of the committee and is the representative from City Council. Deborah Kafori is the chair of Multnomah County and sits as the elected representative from the County Commission. Julie Young is the city-appointed citizen rep that sits on the committee. Serena Studemauer Wesley is the county-appointed citizen rep that sits on the committee. And last, Mitch Horniker is the appointee of the Portland Business Alliance, who holds the 5th seat on the committee. So that's the group of people who are made these decisions that we're asking you to approve today. As Commissioner Saltzman said, these additional grants were made because we had more revenue than anticipated, and that revenue accrued over time. The committee came together and has made a variety of allocations you've approved, and this latest set, they decided to run a grant round for additional after-school programs because after-school programs are the most requested. We get about 6 times the request for the level of money that we offer for after-school programming whenever we let grants for after-school. So it's the typical ratio is 3-to-1. After school is 6-to-1. So it just goes to show that there's tremendous need out there for after-school programming, and there's tremendous demand. The committee elected to pilot a two-step process in making these grants. They did a letter of interest process where prospective grantees could submit a letter of interest and then be asked to submit a full application. We received approximately 23 letters of interest, and 13 were asked to submit full applications. The committee decided to pilot this process because the levy's funding application is a pretty heavy lift for many organizations. It takes a lot of resources to complete it. So this allows people to kind of test their idea and gives the committee a chance to have a little bit longer process to consider the different possible grantees. So of the 13 applicants that the committee reviewed, they all submitted applications. They were scored by volunteer reviewers. The committee looks at the scores that the reviewers present, and they also consider the geographic location of programs, the population served, the needs addressed, and whether or not programs are culturally specific. And after considering all 13 applications, they agreed to fund 7 of them, and there's the list of them, and it's also attached to your paperwork there. We have a number of them here ready to present and tell you a little bit about their programs. Go and see the full list of everybody. I'm happy to answer any questions about process if there's any questions, and otherwise we do have folks here to tell you a little bit about some of the programs that were funded.
Colleagues, looks like you're off the hook for now.
Okay,
I know
thanks,
I'm the least
Lisa.
interesting person. The programs are much more fun. Thank you.
And now we'll be hearing from 4 of these new after-school programs: El Programa Hispano Catolico, REAP, Kairos PDX, and Latino Network. So I'd like to invite El Programa's program coordinator, Adriana Lopez, who will be introducing some of their participants. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm the program coordinator for the Puentes Mentoring. And first of all, we're going to say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to partner with the city on this program. We have this program for several years, and we've been working with high schoolers and middle schoolers. But this time, we have the opportunity to serve elementary kids, so we're very grateful for that. On top of that, with the situation and the political environment, I think it's very important for us to be recognized by the city and say there's a need and there's a population that needs services and support. So I don't want to talk a lot about what I do, but I do want to introduce a couple of people that have received the services and will be receiving the services. And so I can introduce
Yep.
them.
Bring them on up.
The first one is Pedro, so he can introduce himself.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Just want to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak about this program. I myself, I'm a product per se of after-school extended day supporting from the Programa Hispano. I started back in high school trying to fit in, trying to figure out what to do after school. I had a lot of choices, some of them not so good, but I decided to mentor kids because I was given the opportunity to start coaching soccer. From there, I started to get involved in a lot of different ways, supporting academic enrichment activities through the summer programs as well. And got to the point where I believed in the program so much that my sister was also a part of the program. She went through herself. So now that I've graduated college and I've been able to keep on giving back to the community, I've decided to work for this organization one more time and really continue the values and the mission, what they saw, and open the doors to a student like myself. So now I get to do that on a daily basis for other students. So I wanted to make sure let you know a little bit of what's going on within the community. This is something that's very much needed. There's a lot of support needed for these students. And there's also a lot of work being done. So I really want to appreciate some of the people in the room, like Patricia, for example, who works with a lot of kids, a lot of families. And I think this is going to get a great opportunity for the community to work with the families at a primary school level, because there's going to be a lot of different things that they can be engaged in, a lot of understanding of new systems for those families. So it's going to be a really great opportunity. Help me, help my family, and help a lot of kids. I know that now I've graduating high school and continue to go to college and get back at some point or another.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The other person at family is a mom. Her name is Reina. And we were trying to get a couple of students But since it's the beginning of the school year, we didn't want to miss classes.
Right, right.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Reina Alvarado.
Good morning. My name is Elvia Alvarado.
Aquí estoy para hablar de mi hija que está en 10 grado. Del programa de Puente es muy importante y yo quiero que siga ese programa.
And I'm here to talk about my daughter who is in 10th grade and that she is involved in that program. And I want to let you know about that program and how important it is for her.
Porque ella le ha ayudado bastante ese programa. Ella se mejoró bastante y ahora ella está bien contenta que ella estuvo en ese programa y yo quiero que siga continuando dando suficiente fondo más de lo que estaban dando para que le beneficie a todos los estudiantes.
And she is very happy with the program. She has gotten so much better. She's very happy that she is in it. And I want you guys to know that and to encourage you to go ahead and allocate more funds for these programs because I want all students to have this opportunity that she is having because she's very, very happy to be in it.
El otro también que me mencionó Adriana que van a empezar con otros programas de puente en la escuela primaria y ese estoy bien emocionada también porque ese también le va a ayudar bastante a los niños a aprender a leer, aprender a hacer la matemática y todas otras actividades después de la escuela y yo quiero de mi parte que siga dando suficiente fondo para toda la escuela y me gustaría que extendiera más ese programa en otra escuela para que puedan ayudar más niños.
I was also told that there is another program that they're going to be doing for elementary school children, and I think that is wonderful. This is going to help the children with math and different things, and I wish that you would allocate more funds so that all the children in the school can participate in this program, because I really believe that that would make a difference for the children. I want you to know how important it is and how much it's going to impact all those families that are being supported through these programs in the school.
Porque eso le va a ayudar mucho al estudiante porque hay algunos niños que entran en primer grado, en segundo grado y ellos no saben a leer, no saben así. Y con este programa después de la escuela, los mentores le va a ayudar bastante para que ellos sigan mejorando más y ya cuando ya están en su 8 grado, 9 grado ya se están mejorando porque mi hija, la de 10 grado, ella cuando estuvo con programa de puente, ahorita ella se mejoró bastante y ella está bien contenta.
And I think that this is going to help the children. Like children come in through the first or second grade and they don't know how to read or they also are lacking in math skills. And this is going to really help them to support them so that they have those skills that they need so they can excel in school. Just like my daughter that she's in 10th grade, she struggled. And now that, she's in this program, that really helped her to become better and be a better student. And that is going to help all the students to do better in school.
Y como otro programa que mi hija, la de 10 grado, ella está en otro programa de AVE y por medio del puente y ella se fue en el programa de AVE y también ahí también le está ayudando bastante y yo pienso que más que nada que sigue continuando con el programa.
And my daughter, too, she's in a program called AVID, the one that's in 10th grade. And that program, as well as the other program, Bridge, it really helped her. And I think that those two programs together, have really helped her accomplish a lot. And so I really do think that these programs will help the students to do better.
Y muchísimas gracias.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say one last thing, that this is not only an after-school program, it's a cultural-specific program, and we work with the entire family, and we have an impact in the entire community, not only the students. So thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, El Programa, for being here. And next, we have Reeps, Anderson Dubois, and Khalil Self.
All right, good morning.
Morning. Morning.
And thank you for your time. So I'm Anderson Dubois, this is Kaylee Self, and this is Lindsay Perez. And we run the Reflections program at over 5 different sites. And so in a sec, we'll have Lindsay talk a little bit about her experience in the program. But the Reflections program is a school time program that promotes leadership. We are working to elevate our students into places of leadership. And so this was our during the school day program, and Kaylee will talk about our after school program in a sec. But our motto is to prepare the next wave of leaders for the future now. And so we will have Lindsay talk a little bit about her experience.
Good morning. My name is Lindsay Chavez Perez. I'm a fourth grader at Oliver Elementary. I've been in the REAP program for about a year now. It has taught me so many things. Like to do better in class and to always respect others and to have discipline. And I've been practicing my patience. Something that I didn't reap, and I always respect them. How did I grow? Well, how you see me now. I respect my elders, and I have been very happy, and I've been a role model for others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we suspend the rules and give her?
Yeah, good job.
And this is her first time coming into City Hall, and so that's part of what we do, offering opportunities for students to really stand up and extend their voice out. And those are the words that she prepared for you guys today.
Maybe one day you could sit here or there.
Thank you again for your time this morning. My name is Kaylee Self, and I am the site coordinator at Park Lane Elementary School, which is in the Centennial School District. And as a native Portlander, I have definitely noticed the migration of students of color from the inner city areas of Northeast Portland into the Centennial School District. So it's been a pleasure and an honor for me personally to serve those students and serve that community as a member of that community. Secondly, I'd just like to say that it's so encouraging for Lindsay to be here and to see democracy in action, to see our community activists and leaders in our community speak on the things that they're passionate about. And lastly, I hope to see faces and genders like Lindsay represented at your commission right now, because we definitely have gaps in that and representation of students of color and people of color in this community. Last off, I'd like to say that we are so thankful to the Portland Children's Levy for this additional funding. There is definitely a need in this community, and although we have made great strides with our Reflections program, which first and foremost is a disciplinary program, so students who we see are often experiencing conflict, whether it be in the classroom, with their teachers or their staff. And what we're trying to do is to promote a restorative justice model. So that is to end patterns and build leadership in students like Lindsay. And as you can see, she's made a complete turnaround, and she is here representing that growth and that change that we promote in students. So moving forward, this extended programming is going to do lots for the Centennial community, and we are so excited to provide this extended programming to make culturally relevant programming part of our daily after-school programming, as well as providing not only academic supports, but family supports, providing opportunities for students to see leaders in their community that look like them and can mentor them to the next step. So again, I want to acknowledge that Lindsay is going to be a leader of the future and for the next wave of leaders now, and I hope to see her behind the desk where you are now.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Hang
you
on
very
to
much,
that.
Reap. Our next program is Kairos PDX, and we have Zalika Gardner, principal from Kairos PDX. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Zalika Gardner. I'm co-founder and director of education at Kairos. I want to tell you real quickly some things about our program, and then we have some other people that are going to come up and share as well. And we do definitely come in gratitude. We're 4 years old, so we're a charter school program. We serve, currently right now, we serve kindergarten to 4th. When we're full grown, we'll serve kindergarten to 5th grade. We specifically are working to anchor the albino community. We're about 73% kids of color, mostly African American, and mixes thereof. Parents are very specific about their choice to come to Kairos. Our mission is to close the achievement and opportunity gaps that exist here in the city around race. And toward that end, so academically, we have some innovation and things that we do in the program itself. One of them is to really attend to the whole child. So we do believe that academics needs to be rigorous and full of relationship and all those things that we know work for our children. But we also believe that in order for a child to come out strong and ready to lead, they need to have a really firm foundation academically, socially, emotionally, and culturally. So we're really specific about teaching toward, assessing for, and working on growth in all of those areas. And to do so, we partner with families. And one thing that we've heard from the very beginning of our program is the need for that extended after-school care. Like, it's just a very present need that we, with our current funding model, we're not able to make happen for them. So we're really grateful that through the Children's Levy, we're able to now begin to make that happen. And we're excited that we're able to do it within the context of STEM, which is where we're really heading, because we really do believe that the achievement gap is really based in opportunity and wanting to make sure that those opportunities are available for all children in our city and in our school. So I have Lydia, who's going to share a little bit as a parent, and Cottrell, who's going to share a little bit as a community member. And we come in gratitude. Thank you for supporting our program.
So as she stated, my name is Lydia. My daughter has been at Kairos since kindergarten. And I have had the opportunity to watch my daughter become a leader. She's in 3rd grade now. We went to Florida last year on vacation, and my daughter was intrigued, one, because the humidity, because she had never left Portland, besides going to Seattle and different places like that, but to go down south, and the humidity was like overtaking her, so she thought she was going to pass out. She eventually figured out she wasn't. But I told her to start breathing because she will pass out. But she was more intrigued with all the animals that were everywhere. She was able to catch a gecko and was able to explain everything about this gecko, like from the feet being sticky so it could stay on the tree, and that's the reason why the feet are sticky, so it can climb up the trees. Like, she explained everything. And I definitely want to say that's because of Kairos, because she is a leader at Kairos. She's not only a leader in Kairos, she's a leader in her community. I can honestly say that I appreciate what my daughter has learned. I'm also the chairperson for the Family Council for Kairos, and I serve on that particular platform because I want to see our families grow, and I also want to make sure that our children are included in everything that all PPS children are included in, because we are a part of PPS. Even though we are a charter school, we are still a part of the Portland Public School District, as well as this program will help me as a working parent be able to make sure that my daughter is somewhere safe, somewhere where she can continue to learn about science and things like that, because that is what she loves to do. Not only did she catch a gecko, she caught a frog. She was attempting to catch a snail, and I was like, okay, you're done. So, we've done enough catching of the animals. And so, but the fact that she can be who she is and explore science and do different things like that, not just science and math and English or anything that she wants to do. At Kairos, they teach our children that they can be anything that they want to be in this world. And so I want to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of this, but also thank you for funding this program and for allowing children of color to be successful in school as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Cottrell White, and I'm just pleased to be here and see something that's being supported that is really a good, outstanding program. How do I know? I've worked with kids for over 40 years. Now, don't tell anybody, but it's been over 40 years, and I think that I know what a program, a good, solid program is. And I'm real pleased that you decided to fund them, and I hope you continue to fund them. Also, I want you to know that I'm not paid by anybody, so I'm here of my own volition.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I'll turn this over to Sid.
Good morning. I'm Sid Burt. I've been in education in Portland since 1969. I retired from Portland Public Schools in 2003. Since that time, I've done a little teaching at Concordia and Mount Hood Community College. training new teachers, and doing some diversity work. When I heard about Kairos, I was excited because one of the things that's been sort of a passion is how do we close what's been known as the racial achievement gap? And then they call it the opportunity gap now. But it's been there at least since 1968 that I'm aware of. And Kairos has that as a mission. On the way in today, I asked one of the parents standing there, what is it do you like about this program? And he said, he just sort of gestured with his hands, and he said this. And it took me a few minutes, and so I said, what? He says, I like the fact that my child can come to school and see other students that look like her. And this has been something that we really need to do, have schools that are designed for kids who are generally underrepresented in education. They're good students, but they're not well represented. And I think Kairos works on that. There's one other little thing I'd like to throw in here, and that is that so often we like to discipline kids. And what we call discipline generally means punishment. Kairos is trying to avoid that definition of discipline. It's training, it's education, and it's helping children learn to be successful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and thank you, Kairos, and congratulations. And then lastly, we'll hear from Latino Network Executive Director Carmen Rubio.
Commissioner, while they're coming up, if I could just make a comment with regard to Kairos. I know there's some discussion about the location of Kairos, and I want you to know that I have sent, or am in the process of sending, a letter to the school board expressing my support for the continued location of Kairos at Humboldt. So I want you to know we're investing in this program. The results of the program are very, very good. And I don't want to see the school board do anything inadvertently that would derail the good progress that you've already made. We've talked a lot about this achievement gap, and it seems that it would be the wrong time and the wrong thing to do to uproot this program. So I want you to know I stand with you, and I will be working to encourage those on the school board to stand with you as well. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Carmen Rubio, and I'm the Executive Director of Latino Network. And I'm here with my colleague, Joel Cisneros, who's our Director of School-Based Programs at Latino Network. And our mission is to transform the lives of youth and families and communities in Oregon. And we do this through very high-quality programs and dedicated staff. And most of our staff are bilingual, bicultural, and a strong belief in community self-determination. We're in 2 counties and in 35 schools, and we serve nearly 6,800 youth and adults a year. And my team and I believe that this work is a privilege and an honor for us to do every single day. And I want to begin by expressing my appreciation to the staff of the Children's Levy and the Allocation Committee for all the tireless hours that they put into this work. And we know this very rigorous process ensures that our tax dollars are funding the highest quality and most effective programs. And so we're very incredibly honored to be considered among the company of the people that we heard today. That was really wonderful. One of our core values is our dedication to complete and equitable education. And we currently have programming across the county aimed at preparing youth for success and to become college and career ready through culturally responsive and culturally specific programming and interventions. Through our programs, we're working from students from pre-K all the way to 12th grade. And our data shows that we are facilitating long-lasting and positive change. For example, last year, 98% of our 12th graders enrolled in our after-school programs graduated and were enrolled in college or career technical programs. And so today, PCL funding will allow Latino Network to deepen its commitment to youth across the city, especially in the high opportunity areas of East Portland.
Our after-school project focuses on young students and a number of them being English language learners, and particularly those attending kindergarten through 3rd grade across 3 schools. And so I will turn it over to my colleague Joel to talk a little bit about the specific interventions and the outcomes that we expect.
All right, so thank you again. So Joel Cisneros. So our program is going to focus, like Carmen said, in our after-school program setting with K-3, and particularly promoting executive functioning skills, which are the building blocks for the cognitive and social capacities of lifelong learning. In order to achieve this goal, our program will pivot on the nationally recognized curriculum, Second Step. And Second Step promotes self-regulation skills, social-emotional competence, and school connectedness in program participants. Youth participating in our program will receive the 4 core components of Second Step, which are developing skills for learning, teaching empathy, emotional management, and problem-solving strategies. So what we know is that if we can help those students be able to self-regulate and be able to have those basic building blocks, they will achieve academically. Our goal is to use instructor data as well as teacher data in order to measure effectiveness of the program. And we plan to reach 60 students per year, with 20 students at each school site.
So that's just a little bit about our program. If you have any questions, we're open to those, but we just want to say thank you for investing in this really critical service. This is truly changing and giving opportunity to our most vulnerable children. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Carmen and Joel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I want to thank all the program participants who came here to testify about how these programs are transforming lives. And this investment you're about to vote on represents $3 million invested in 7 high-quality after-school programs. And we're very grateful to the work that these programs do on behalf of children and family of the city of Portland. And I would urge approval.
Could I ask one more question of Lisa? Could you just come back up for one moment, please? So Lisa, during public testimony on prior matters, the question came up about the salaries and expenditures of nonprofit organizations. Could you tell us, when the selection committee is discussing various nonprofits, what is the conversation around things like overhead? Do you have standards? Do you have comparators? How do you address those issues?
We limit, so each grant proposal submits a budget along with their proposal to the amount of staffing that they want to cover to be able to deliver the program. There's usually also an administrative cost to delivering any program, and we limit that administrative cost to 15%. So that's sort of the upper end. Not everybody takes that full 15%, so sometimes that is an element that reviewers will note, is that this program can be delivered perhaps a bit cheaper. So that's, I mean, it weighs in, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily decisive, since we set a cap on how much they can claim.
And then it's my understanding you don't necessarily just hand over grant money. Then there is a continual conversation about these types of issues. There's an engagement process.
Oh, yes.
Could you describe that briefly?
Yes. So each contract is negotiated and each budget is then approved so that goes through a staff vetting process before we make the grant. Then people have to collect a lot of data, most of which is not very fun for them, but they do anyway. So we track sort of 5 major metrics for all programs. We're looking at, are they meeting the goals for the numbers of kids that they reach? Are they meeting the goals for the level of participation that we're expecting? So we want students to show up for this program. It's not enough just that they came twice, right? So we're tracking the level of attendance. We're tracking the outcomes, so every grantee sets outcomes for their program, and they have to have a way to measure it, and we give them assistance in figuring out how to do that. So they have to report to us annually about outcomes, and we assess that. And we also look at staff turnover, because that is a major issue in program quality. In addition, we provide other supports for quality improvement in each of the program areas, so folks have access to some assistance to improve quality as on a day-by-day, like youth development, program delivery, or how you coach staff to best, to be a good supervisor so you retain your staff, those kinds of supports. So we're monitoring that and reporting that on an annual basis to the allocation committee that looks at all of those grant assessments. And then, before we would renew a grant or consider it again, we would look at that cumulatively over time.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Colleagues, any other questions while she's up here for now? Very good. Thank you. Public testimony?
I believe we have at least one, Joe Walsh, and I think Pedro Fartan already spoke.
Yes.
Very good. Mr. Walsh, come on up.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Joe Walsh. I represent Individuals for Justice. We fully support this program, obviously, if you know anything about us. But there was a question that came up, and this is the question. We listened to sessions yesterday, and we realized that you're going to have a problem down the line somewhere with the federal government and funding. And we're concerned that these programs that are outstanding, and again, let me say, we love this program. And if that happens and the feds start to cut the funds, we usually criticize you for having too much in reserve, but we're cautioning you that that's going to happen one way or the other. Either we're going to have a financial disaster with this group in Washington, or it's just going to happen because Mother Earth is just really mad at us at the moment. And these expenditures for hurricanes and earthquakes is going to eventually get to us. So we're concerned that if you create these programs and you fund them and you expand them, please take it with the thought that the feds may cut your funding. And what do you do then? Are you going to guarantee these kids a continuation of the program? We would fight you tooth and nail before we let you cut these programs. But often, you don't pay attention to us. So I'm just cautioning you. I haven't heard anything today that gives us any feeling that you're thinking in those terms. Good program, new funding. What happens if this jerk up here pulls the funding from the feds? And it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. We just don't know how bad it's going to be. But it ain't going to be good. So we would just caution you. Congratulations on the program. It's a wonderful program. You should be proud of what you're doing. I often criticize you, as I did this morning. However, when you're right, you're right. And I've often said that over the 10 years. And you're right on this one. You should be proud of it. But please, have a plan B. Because we are in for a really difficult 3 years.
Thank
Plus,
you.
actually.
Thank you. Good morning, sorry.
Good morning. My name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Watchdog X. Now, maybe I didn't hear you properly, Commissioner Salzman, but the grand total allocation is $1,032,000. I think you stated $3 million.
You're right. I'm wrong. Sorry.
Okay, just for a correction there. Issue number 2 is that I really like the choices, so I absolutely approve of all the grants, and I know you'll do very well. One of the questions I do have, though, is not separating myself from the picks, is I noticed some of the numbers here of 210,000, some as low as 100,000. I wasn't quite sure how you would actually determine how to allocate toward each group from the grant process. So that was just kind of a question to me, because I saw some people on the lower side of 100,000, so it was kind of a concern to me. And also, if I heard properly, I thought it was stated that there would be a 5% administrative cap. Then I heard somebody else state, no, we calculate that in at 15%. Maybe I heard that wrong also, but so I heard 2 different percentages, so it was just a little bit confusing to me. Because when I heard 5%, I said, you know, that's really good. That's really amazing that you can do that. Another thing I'd like to see possibly is, I know a lot of younger kids in school, some people that have a real creative ability and may not want to follow the rules and the structure of the schools. And I didn't know if you had a program that kind of you put them into in some of these grants that have been given out to where kind of from more of a creative process type style of young kids, that they can actually have certain kind of courses to be tailored toward the direction they might be going in the arts or maybe in, you know, a more creative direction. So I didn't see anything in here. Maybe what I'm trying to say is kind of an entrepreneur innovation type education direction. And maybe some of these different groups or the grantees, you do provide that even at a young age, which I think is very necessary to understand not everybody's going to go to Harvard, such as Mayor Wheeler, or MIT as Commissioner Saltzman, or Harvard as Commissioner Fish, which I'm not putting Harvard down by any means.
I will. I'm happy to do that.
You did attend there, if I'm correct. Okay.
I got a better education at Northeastern.
Okay, that's more than fair. But what I'm saying is that I want to have that creative style of individual in the city of Portland, make sure they have the opportunities after school type courses so they don't get left behind, which obviously a lot of them do, and they end up not completing their education. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So if I could just, go ahead, you can go ahead and take a seat, but
Okay,
you
thank
did raise a good question on, I just want to clarify that, yes, today we're asking you to invest $1 million in new money. The allocation committee is still sitting on another almost $2 million that we'll be bringing forward those recommendations later this fall. And the administrative cap, the 5% administrative cap applies to the children's levy program itself, the administration of the children's levy. The 15% cap applies to the organizations that we fund. So good point, good catch.
Very good. Colleagues, any further questions? Commissioner Saltzman, anything else?
Nope.
Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaley? Aye. Fritz?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Saltzman, for your continued diligence on this, and it's truly a legacy project and results in 98% graduation rate. That's pretty impressive. Aye.
Fish?
Dan, thank you for an outstanding presentation, Director Pellegrino, and thank you particularly for bringing the stories from the community forward, because I think it's important for people to see the lives that are affected by this program. And I continue to think, Dan, this will be your singular legacy on this council. Aye.
Wheeler?
Well, I think it's great. And I once, many, many years ago, had the privilege of serving on the allocation committee. And needless to say, I thought people were very, very engaged. And I thought the vetting was intensive by the staff prior to it even coming to the allocation committee. And then the allocation committee asked lots and lots of probing questions. So I feel like the reason it's easy for us to vote yes on this today and the results of these organizations are good because we do have that vetting process that Lisa and her team and then the volunteers on the allocation committee to provide to the process. So it's very well structured, in my opinion, to make sure that the programs that are the most worthy rise to the top, and therefore it makes it easy for us to have these conversations. I absolutely vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you all for coming in, and thanks for the, Dan, I thought it was a great group of people providing testimony today. Thank you. Carla, would you mind reading the next two items together, please, 1031 and 32?
Teresa?
1031, authorize a contract with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. in the amount of $3,325,000 for the Corrosion Control Improvements Project. And 1032, approve findings to authorize an exemption to the competitive bidding requirements and authorize the use of the alternative contracting method of construction manager, general contractor in connection with the Corrosion Control Improvements Project for an estimated amount of $11 million.
Commissioner Fish.
Thank you very much. And colleagues, I apologize for the timbre of my voice. One of the medications I'm on, which is a steroid, which is going to prevent me from playing professional football, has the effect of suppressing my voice. And Mr. Walsh is nodding, and perhaps nodding in part because different people have different opinions as to whether I should continue on this indefinitely to lower the decibel level from this chair. So, but it has the effect of suppressing my voice. Colleagues, the Portland Water Bureau has had corrosion control as part of our water treatment system since 1997. And while the Water Bureau remains in compliance with the Environmental Protection Agency's lead and copper rule, today's proposed council actions will improve the existing corrosion control treatment system. The proposed project is part of a compliance schedule with the Oregon Health Authority and is planned to be completed by April 30th, 2022. We have an all-star panel today I'd like to introduce. They are Celeste King from Procurement Services, Teresa Elliott, the Chief Engineer of the Portland Water Bureau, and Michelle Cheek, Senior Engineer, Portland Water Bureau. And they're going to give us a presentation about a competitively solicited design contract and a proposed competitive solicitation for the project. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Teresa Elliott, Chief Engineer, Portland Water Bureau, and I'm primarily here as moral support and to help answer questions. Michelle is going to do our presentation, and then Celeste is going to talk about procurement's part, and then we'll be available to answer questions.
Okay. I quickly would just like, Lindsay has left, but more power to that young lady for sitting up here and talking in front of you, because it's very intimidating, even as an adult and professional. So anyways, I will get started. So I am here today to give you an update on the corrosion improvements project, and in support of that, get your approval for a PTE design contract, and then also an alternative procurement process for the construction. So the corrosion improvements project will design and construct a new corrosion control treatment facility, which will also include support facilities, including a new utility water pump station, and associated piping and support systems to make the treatment facility operational.
To put you at ease, can I
Yeah.
start off by thanking you for something that may seem small, but it's not? Thank you for actually doing the overheads in type that people can see. And we've been putting out the word, I think it was Mr. Walsh who first raised this issue a number of weeks ago, and you are amongst the first to actually implement it. So thank you for that. It's a great standard.
I would love to take credit for that, but Gabe is the one that
Pass it on.
put this together. So.
Pass it
Just
on,
say
because
thank you.
there's
Yes,
a lot of
thank you,
people
thank
at
you.
home who really struggle to read the slides if they're too small, and I do as well, I'll confess that. So we really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Sure. So in March of this year, we were at council to talk about the corrosion improvements project, and in early March, you gave us, or you approved our request to move forward with the contract for the corrosion control treatment pilot. So we have kicked off that work, and it is underway. And then on April 5th, we completed our water quality corrosion study and submitted that report to OHA in accordance with our compliance deadline. And we presented the results of that to council in early March. In April of this year, we also released the RFQ for the design consultant, and the contract that we are here to get approval for today is a result of that RFQ. In mid-May, OHA approved our modified schedule for improved corrosion control treatment, which accelerated our schedule by 5 months. And then at the end of June of this year, we submitted our pilot study plan to OHA, again, in accordance with our compliance schedule. So current project activities that we're working on, we're here today to get your approval for the PTE design contract. And
Can I just interrupt you? And this
Sure.
is a bit of a negative. Could you say what all the acronyms mean?
Oh.
Thank you.
On this slide.
Oh, okay. Yeah, PTE, Professional Technical Engineering Services. I use these so often, I forget what they actually mean. And CMGC is Construction Manager General Contractor. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem. And so upon approval of the PTE design contract today, we will begin some early design
tasks on the corrosion control treatment facility that are required regardless of the treatment alternative that is selected. So things like geotechnical work, surveying work, survey of existing facilities to figure out how to integrate future facilities with the existing facilities. And then at the end of this year, we'll be implementing improvements to our lead hazard reduction program as part of our interim lead reduction program that was submitted to the state. We are working with the Oregon Health Authority to evaluate the education component of the lead hazard reduction program, and any recommendations that come out of that will be implemented as part of improvements to that program. So future project activities, we are currently well on our way to meeting our future compliance deadlines. July 31st of 2018, we will be submitting our recommended treatment alternative and the results of our pilot study to OHA, and then immediately thereafter begin detailed design of those recommended treatment improvements. April 30th of 2020, we are required to submit our treatment plans and specifications for that facility to OHA. August 1st, we're required to begin construction of that facility. And then April 30th of 2022 is when those facilities are required to be online and operational. The overall project budget for the corrosion improvements project is $19,916,000, and that includes the design contract and the CMGC contract estimate, and also PWB management and staff involvement time. The design contract that we are bringing forward today is for $3,325,000, and the CMGC contract estimate is $11 million, and the total project estimate has a low confidence level given that we have limited design done at the time.
So can I just ask sort of a top-line question? So between the CMGC and the design contract, 11, 12, 13, 14,325,000, what's the rest that gets you the 19.9?
Yes, that's PWB management, staff involvement time, and also some contingency given the low confidence level of the project.
Okay, very good. And what typically do you put into contingency? Is it 10%? What is the contingency?
Low confidence levels up to 50%, possibly greater.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just given the lack of detail that we know at the time about.
Okay, so this is very much then conceptual at this point. So these are numbers, these are basically ballpark numbers at best.
Correct. I think technically the description is an educated guesstimate.
Okay, and then you come back as you refine the guesstimate with more detail.
Correct.
And at what stage do you do that? What are the waypoints along the line to get towards more confidence?
So at each of the design milestones, we'll be completing construction estimates or new estimates for the construction. And then also the CMGC contractor will be brought on board early in the design process and will be giving us a guaranteed maximum price for the construction phase of the project early on, and Celeste will, or somebody from procurement will be coming back to council to present that.
And just so I understand, on the CMGC portion of that, if we'll agree on the design parameters, and then after the construction, if there's any cost overruns, they eat it, not us. Is that correct? Or how does that work?
Yes, that is generally correct, provided that, I mean, they are providing a guaranteed maximum price based on a specific scope of work.
So if I may,
Sure,
Mayor.
Teresa, introduce yourself.
Teresa Elliott, Chief Engineer.
Thank you.
A guaranteed maximum price is what we're bringing forward as the construction contract. And as long as nothing has changed in the scope of work, then if the price is overrun, then they eat it. If there is something that the Bureau or the city has added to the contract, or if there's major differing site conditions that are outside of the scope of the contract, then the language of the contract says that we will negotiate a change order for
So
that.
the beauty then of CMGC is that you have the maximum. The downside to it is we need to make sure our upfront work is
Right.
Sterling, right?
Correct.
That's where
And-
the protection is for us.
And it's also, the other protection is by bringing the contractor on board during design, we have the ability to remove some of the risks because we can do exploration stuff in advance, and the contractor is more aware of what's being designed and what's being built.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks for that digression. That's helpful for me to understand. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And that covers my slides, and so I'll turn it over to Celeste, and I think a lot of this we've covered already, but.
Right. Okay, good morning, Commissioners, Mayor. I'm Celeste King, the Procurement Supervisor in the Construction Group. So the City Attorney has reviewed and approved the findings as they're attached as Exhibit A, finding them in compliance with the requirements set in ORS 279 and City Code. This project will benefit by being outside the standard low bid process by having the ability of all parties to work together on the design elements significantly early in the project. Having the construction contractor brought in early will likely result in a better project. Another benefit would be working together on sequencing and scheduling to maintain continued operations and meet water's compliance deadline. Water and procurement will work together on developing the subcontractor and supplier equity plan for this project and agree that we will aspire to exceed the standard goal and maximize participation. The DMW ESB utilization goals will be one of the evaluating factors in the request for proposal process, which is not available to us in the standard low bid process. The DMW ESB goals will also be included in the contract negotiation. Today, we are asking for approval for the ordinance to authorize an exemption from the competitive bidding process and authorize the use of an alternative contracting method, CMGC, in connection with a corrosion control improvement project for an estimated amount of $11 million. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Where will this facility be located?
We are looking at our Lusted Hill facility up in, it's not in the watershed itself, but it's up in the, basically it's used as agricultural area in Clackamas, Multnomah County.
Very good.
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'll stick around in case there are any questions.
Yes.
Public testimony?
Yes, we have 3 people signed up:
Very good.
Joe Walsh, Dee White, and Floyd Jones.
Yeah. Certainly. Good morning. Dee, do you want to start today? Thanks.
Boy. Oh, sorry. My name is Dee White, and once again, the Water Bureau and the city, of course, is going to approve this. It's putting the cart before the horse. You're going to build a treatment facility to dump a whole bunch of chemicals in the water. You're going to have to dump even more than you need to because you haven't flushed the pipes. And flushing is best practices. It was recommended in the previous, the Black and Veatch corrosion control study that they are being informed for this next corrosion control study that they're doing. And Black and Veatch, one of their suggestions was to flush the pipes. And we brought it up at the budget meeting. Y'all had, flushing pipes is best practice. Y'all do about 7 miles a year. That makes it so with 2,700 miles of pipes here, that means that the pipes don't get flushed but every 75 to 100 years. And there are probably some pipes out there that have never been flushed. That is a major reason why the water is that is the major reason why we've got lead, is because the water corrodes the pipes. There's biofilm on it, there's scale. It's all, the Water Bureau, instead of doing their maintenance, they're so far behind in maintenance, they're just going to build new fancy, glamorous projects that are way overpriced. I mean, there was $5 million spent back in 2013 on a expansion at Lusted Hill. And design, and I don't know if it was constructed, I don't think it was, but the design, $5 million given to an engineering firm for an expansion, was that not even looked at? There were plans were made, $5 million was spent. All this, I don't know if y'all have ever been to Lusted Hill, and like, we don't even know if it's going to go at Lusted Hill. Y'all are going to have to do a wildlife survey. That's on the last contract. The public doesn't know anything about this. I mean, y'all say you don't even know where you're going to do it. You do know, but you're not going to let the public know. In the fall, well, last year, the EPA and the OHA, we exceeded the lead action level. No level of lead is safe, but the EPA, if it gets above 15, the EPA comes in and says, you got to do this. Well, this hasn't even been mentioned either. The test can't, y'all threw a bunch of chemicals in. You said you were going to raise the pH to 8.0 or 8.1 or 8.2. The results come in. The latest test from the last quarter, action level, it's 14.75, right below the action level, right below it. The pH is only 7.9. Good Lord. Has that 3 minutes already gone by?
Thank you.
Well, can I just read one more thing?
One more thing. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Mr. Rogers says, life is deep and simple, and what society gives us is shallow and complicated. This is so much like what the Water Bureau, everything is complicated, everything, and it's so simple.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Floyd Jones, Friends of the Reservoirs. And I've only had opportunity to briefly look at this Black and Veatch report from April 2017. It's about 400 pages. But it brings up issues that we've talked about for many years. I served on the Water Bureau Budget Committee. I often pushed for flushing of our system on a routine basis. That was ignored. And I'll just give you a story from 2004, which I think represents how all of these projects go. The Water Bureau had a public meeting out at the community center on 106th off of Stark, and they were pushing all these big build projects. Water Bureau employees who were milling around before the session were lamenting that our system was so simple. They go to these conferences, they just come back. Everybody else was having fun. They weren't able to build. At the end of the session, I asked Morton Ushiravani, then director, why is it that you spend so much money on studies, consultant studies, and yet the auditor has said you need to do all these maintenance projects, you're not following them? And his answer was, designing and building is glamorous, maintenance is boring. And that theme has continued out in all these years, 16 years of looking into Water Bureau issues. And the Water Bureau number of employees, it used to be historically 425 employees. Then when Randy Leonard got into this whole big, let's raise our rates, starting with 17 point, whatever it was, and every year big rate increases, it expanded. We're well above 600, but you don't allocate enough staff to be doing this unidirectional flushing, which needs to be done routinely. And again, that's part of this report, that perhaps the pH that we already put in the water would be more effective if there weren't the biofilm, and it talks about that in this report. The other issue is cancer-causing nitrification. We said all along, you eliminate those open reservoirs, we're going to have nitrification. EPA has documented it for decades, that's a problem. They said we failed to address that in the EPA LT2 rule. AWWA talks about that. It's talked about in this Black and Veatch report. I continue to go to the wholesale customer meetings, and I just don't understand why the Water Bureau and the wholesale customers are not together down there at the Oregon Health Authority and talking about this together. Every meeting was just there last week. They say the same thing again. You're going to do this, build this plant, and then you're going to create problems for all of these outlying areas because everybody has all these different water sources. So I don't know if you can intervene. I've done public records at the Health Authority before, and it's not that the Health Authority necessarily pushes these time schedules. It's the Water Bureau wants these time schedules. If everybody met with OHA together, we might end up with a better result. So I think you need to reallocate some funds and put it into maintenance instead of designing and building.
Thank you. Good morning. Sorry.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Joe Walsh. I represent Individuals for Justice. We support everything that was just said. One of the things that Stun does was low confidence. No project should go forward with a low confidence rating. None. They should be automatically stopped until you get to reasonable or high confidence. We know what we're doing. That's the area up there. We know what we're doing. Not low confidence. You're talking about a lot of money here. You're talking about millions of dollars. And it always sounds in the presentations that we got this under control. We got this figured out. And almost every project doubles. Why is that? Why does that happen? I mean, you can answer. Why does that happen? Every project that goes through this council, if it's under budget and on time, you stand there and you have a cocktail party to celebrate. That's how unusual it is. Does it happen? Yes, it does happen. Does it happen often? No. It would be interesting to do the statistics on it, and I would like to see the statistics on low confidence. How about that? Let's do a statistical analysis on low confidence on a $10 million project if we had to raise the fees. And Commissioner Fish, it's...
Could I take just
Yeah.
a couple seconds of your
This is Mr.
time?
Walsh's time. This is
I
Mr.
could give
Walsh's
up my time, right?
Fair enough.
I just want to make one more comment on the alternative procurement contracting, because that happens a lot, again, over the last 10 years. And in the document that's submitted to you, it says that this doesn't support favoritism. But again, go back and look at every time they do this, it ends up being the same corporations getting the contracts. So, you know, it may help them in designing and carrying out the project, but it does end up with favoritism. You can go back and you'll see CH2M Hill, MWH Global, and like I said earlier, those names have changed now because they were bought out this summer by a bigger conglomerate, but that's another big issue that needs to be looked at.
Okay, and let me hitchhike on that. We have a consensus here that we would really like to see minority contractors get more business. We all say that. And again, when you say it, it's sugar words because it doesn't mean anything when you do this stuff. You have to go out and get minority contractors and really work at it. Not just take $10 million and throw it out there and say, well, this guy over here has all the facilities. He can do it really easy, or she can do it really easy. You have to work at it. And that's what we're saying. We object to this. And we are on the record object to it. And please, in the future, don't say nobody objected. We did, all
Thank
three
you.
of us.
Very good. Is that it, the end of public testimony on this item?
That's all who signed up.
Could we have staff come back up, please, and we'll go through some of these issues. If I could, and I won't remember all of them, but the comment was made, why would we start on this if we don't have reasonable or high confidence?
Actually,
Could you explain that?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
Back in...
Introduce yourself again.
Teresa
Oh, yeah, I'm
Elliott,
sorry.
Chief Engineer. I believe back in 2008, maybe 2009, City Council adopted a ordinance on what kind of confidence rating they wanted to be applied to all contracts and ordinances coming to City Council. If a project is in planning or at the beginning of design, it is considered to have a low confidence rating. If it is at 100% design and going out to bid, it has a high confidence rating, which means that it has still a plus or minus 20% contingency. A low confidence has plus or minus 50% contingency, according to your confidence ordinance that was passed by City Council.
Thank you. That's very helpful. The comment was just made with regard to minority contractors. Could you state what the commitment is?
So our, during an alternative procurement project, we negotiate with procurement and with the contractor to set what the goals are. We always look at what the current city goals are for MWSB participation and for both contractors and for workforce, and then we work to make sure that we exceed those. The current ones for the alternative projects that we have going forward right now is 22% for MWSB participation, 12% of that going to minorities, at least 5% going to women, and 5% going to anybody else. I don't anticipate our goals ever dropping below those, so I'm expecting it to be at least those numbers.
Very good. Thank you, colleagues. Any further questions before we move these? Commissioner Udaly?
I'd like to know how to get on the invite list, because I haven't been invited to a single city council cocktail party all year.
I haven't either.
Very good.
can have our
So with regard to item 1031, this is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second. With regard to items 1032, this is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It also goes to second reading.
Thank you, ladies
Thank you.
all.
Next item, 1036 has already been removed. Is that correct?
Yeah, we should read the title.
Go ahead and read it.
Okay. 1036, amend contract with Enviro Issues, Inc. in the amount of $35,000 to provide additional police review board facilitator services.
This has been moved to the 27th of September, so we are not discussing it today. Next item, please.
Item 1037, authorize a contract with Squire Patton Boggs, U.S. LLP, for federal lobbying not to exceed $198,000 a year.
Colleagues, the city has benefited from having an on-the-ground team in Washington, D.C. in order to get in front of our delegation, the administration, and work groups like the United States Conference of Mayors. Having a presence in D.C. is essential for the city to make sure that not only our friends in the congressional delegation know our priorities and values, but that the current Trump administration continues to know that Portland, as well as other cities, stand as engines of ideas and our nation's economy. And that Portland and our communities won't be trampled by this administration's divisive brand of politics. I've appreciated the work of Vicki Cram in particular and her team generally to represent the city's interests. She does fantastic work, and I look forward to continuing our work with her. I've had the opportunity to go back and meet with our delegation, and I've found Vicki's help vital to the success of those meetings that I've had in D.C. Thanks to Elizabeth Edwards and her team for being here today. Nils Tillstrom is here. Carrie Poffel, I don't know if she's here, but thanks to her as well for running a very thorough process. Elizabeth, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, for the record, Elizabeth Edwards, Interim Director with the Office of Government Relations. You've covered a little bit of the background. We have obviously dedicated staff here in Portland that work with our Oregon delegation and coordinate efforts locally, but having that presence on the ground is incredibly important to advocate on behalf of the city's interests. And it's really not just about Congress or key committees or the administration or federal agencies, but as you highlighted also these national organizations that share the city's values, because it's not just about the federal government, it's about national politics. And that's why it's so essential that we have a knowledgeable, strategic, physical presence in Washington, D.C. So before you today, we are bringing an ordinance to allow the Office of Government Relations to enter into a contract for federal representation. Our current one expires in October. And just by way of background, our current contract is with Squire Patton Boggs. We extended it. It was going to expire at the end of August, and we extended it through the end of October in order to allow for a robust procurement process. Starting back in April of this year, our office worked with procurement services as well as the mayor's office in order to issue a request for proposals. And we were looking for responses from individuals or firms that have a demonstrated experience working with the federal government and representing other cities or municipalities. Unfortunately, this April RFP didn't produce sufficient responses for a competitive procurement process, and so we canceled that RFP and we reissued, updated and reissued the request. In July, with the help of procurement services, our office convened an evaluation committee comprised of 4 city employees, a mix of council offices and bureau representation, as well as 1 external member of the public from the Excellent Minority Evaluator program. After review and discussion of those proposals, the evaluation committee ultimately determined that Squire Patton Boggs provided the best proposal and awarded it the highest score. So the contract itself is for 3 years, with the opportunity for a single extension for an additional 3 years. The amount is not to exceed $198,000 per year, and the funds for the lobbying contract already exist in the government relations budget, so no additional funds are required. So I'd also like to echo thanks to Niels Tillstrom and Carrie Paffel for helping shepherd this process through. And with that, I'll close my remarks and happy to answer any questions.
How many companies proposed or responded to the RFP?
We ultimately had 3 viable proposals come forward. It's an area where it's an area of lobbying that doesn't have a wealth of folks practicing in that area.
Commissioner Friss?
Well, I appreciate the robust process and going back out since we didn't get it. I was also very happy to see the contract awarded with Victoria Cram still being our representative. I'm getting old enough that people start retiring hither and yon. So I'm just wondering, I don't know what Ms. Cram's plans are, but supposing she were to decide not to continue working for the firm, what would be, do they have viable alternatives?
Commissioner Fritz, yes, as part of the proposal, it's not just Vicki, but she's supported by a whole team of folks. And so there's a bench there, but Vicki is, of course, our primary point of contact.
And I've been very impressed with how successful we've been at the federal government, so thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Is there public testimony on this item? Very good. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Watchdog X. President Trump, are you going to give any federal funds to the state of Oregon? Do we have lobbyists in there that can communicate to you in a reasonable manner to ensure that we get those funds? We have a lot of city commissioners in here that think that stopping the city in its tracks and hurting the overall city economically is going to send a message to the current administration. But I think the current administration is going to send back a message and say, we're going to stop your funding like we're going to do North Korea, and we're going to remove half of you out of your seats. And, you know, my question here is this, is that we have 2 senators that really speak out against the current administration, really speak out against somebody that has been elected as the president. Now, in my opinion, if you're going to do that, make a stand. Make a stand like North Korea. Be willing to lose everything economically. Be willing to stand there and say, I don't like you, and it doesn't matter. Make that stand. Stop all the federal funding coming to the city of Portland. Make your stand. We have lobbyists that we're paying, what, $200,000 a year to try to create ways to get that funding. Are the current senators right now working alongside the lobbyist or making it very difficult for the lobbyists to obtain any type of funding from the federal government? What is their job? What are the jobs of these elected officials here? Anti-Trump? Anti-Sessions? Anti-federal grants? Make your stand. Be willing to make your stand like North Korea. Be willing to take your whole economy down like North Korea. And remember one thing. These elected officials here, when you do that, you're not going to be sitting in those seats. And I have a statement to all of you that think you can negotiate with the current administration in the manner that you think you have up to this point. Guess what? What is he doing with North Korea right now? What is he doing at the United Nations right now with North Korea, who made that stand? I ask any of you elected officials here, what is he going to do with North Korea? That's what he's going to do with the city of Portland. These lobbyists don't have a chance to get any money. They don't have a chance to get anything. They don't have a chance because when you go into negotiations with the same mindset as Kim Jong-un, who's a complete idiot, an idiot who should be removed. If you go in with the same mindset, you're going to see what happens to Kim Jong-un and his regime in the same way the Trump administration will come back and let you know. We will destroy you economically. We will
Thank you.
destroy you military.
Thank you.
And let me ask you something, Mayor Wheeler, since you're here.
I'm always here. I'm
Do
easy
you think,
to find
do
on
you
Wednesdays.
think that you're going to help these lobbyists get any money from the federal government by denying the right to go over and sit at a meeting with Jeff Sessions? And just to look at his face and say, you know what?
Excuse me.
I'm the
So
police commissioner.
This is off topic, but I
No,
will.
it's not
I
off
will.
topic,
Excuse me. It
because
is.
they go and lobby for money. which
Excuse me.
these same people
Okay,
have
if
to-
you let me talk,
Okay.
I will actually answer your question.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, number one, I disagree with, you said I don't like. Okay, this isn't personal. I profoundly disagree with this administration's policies vis-à-vis Sanctuary City. And I'm not putting that out there as a statement of value. I'm putting that out there as a point of law. And the Attorney General can have his opinion with regard to Sanctuary City, but guess what? The federal courts, including a judge in Chicago appointed by Republican Ronald Reagan, agrees with us and disagrees with the president and disagrees with the Attorney General. I stand on the principle of law. And for me, as an elected official, that is what I'm going to continue to do. So guess what? I believe both we will stand on that principle and I believe we're entitled to those federal funds, and we will continue to fight for them. And this firm, which works across the aisles, I don't know what Vicki's politics are, and I don't care, but I know she has a lot of clients who are Republicans as well. We will continue to work with her to fight for the funds that we believe we are entitled to and uphold the law, which is what we are obliged to do. But thank you for your testimony.
And if I might just
Any
respond
further
real
comments?
fast, if I might respond real fast,
Sure.
and I respect your debating back and forth in a
And
reasonable
I
manner.
always appreciate yours as
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you.
We need to understand what these lobbyists' position are. They're representing us. They're representing how much money we're going to get. And when we negotiate and see what North Korea has done with the current Trump administration, it's a lesson to be learned. It's a lesson to understand. Whoever is the president, we need to go in there and negotiate in a reasonable manner, which will benefit the city, not bankrupt it like North Korea. Lesson to be learned, lesson to watch. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Any further questions or comments on this one, folks? Thank you, Elizabeth and Niels, for coming in. This is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. Commissioner Fritz, at the bell.
Just before you gavel, I'd like to associate myself with your remarks and thank you for speaking on behalf of the entire council.
Very good. And I shouldn't presume to speak on behalf of the council, but I know we've had these conversations, and so I took that liberty, and I appreciate your stating that. This is the first reading of the non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 1038, amend and repeal citywide accounting administrative rules relating to capital assessment asset accounting.
Well, this just goes to prove that we cover all kinds of topics interesting to the mundane, all of them equally important. Colleagues, OMF periodically reviews and updates city code and administrative rules to reflect current practices and requirements. These three accounting administrative rules pertain to the accounting of citywide capital assets. The content and structure are revised to provide clarity and improved usability. As a practice, OMF brings revisions of administrative rules to City Council for formal approval. And we have two wonderful people here to tell us about it. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm Michelle Kunick-North with the Office of Management and Finance. With me today is Michelle Kirby, the City Controller. And we have a resolution to amend and repeal a set of citywide accounting administrative rules. This is impacting three financial administrative rules, all that provide guidance to financial staff about the appropriate way to account for capital assets across the city. We're making a set of changes, as the mayor mentioned, primarily for usability and clarity. The most significant changes are to financial 6.11. That administrative rule has been repealed, or with this proposal would be repealed and completely replaced. Much of that is because of structural changes, improved clarity, and the incorporation of what was 6.09 relating to computer software, which we now consider a capital asset and have included in that larger 6.11 policy. And then finally, financial 6.12, disposal of capital assets, had some more minor changes for clarity throughout that administrative rule. Michelle is here to say a few words and also to answer any specific questions you might have about these changes.
Very good.
Morning.
Morning.
Michelle Kirby, City Controller. Not to confuse you with the two Michelle K show here, but the city is, as a reminder, the city is required to follow generally accepted accounting standards as set forth by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or GASB. And the accounting admin rules provide guidance as to the appropriate accounting practice and procedures for the city to use, and it also reflects best practices. As Michelle mentioned, the admin rules discussed here today pertain to capital assets, and it's important to note that there have been no recent changes in the accounting standards pertaining to capital assets. The revisions presented here today restructure the content, add clarity to items that were deemed a little confusing based on Bureau questions and feedback. These capitalization rules are very complex. The numbers are large on our balance sheet, and the revisions presented here, and there's also accompanying procedures and examples, are meant to be a useful tool for city financial staff and decision makers. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, why is this this resolution coming to us? Is it because the Office of Management and Finance doesn't have the authority to make its own administrative rules?
In this case, actually, the Chief Administrative Officer does have the authority to adopt changes to these rules, but it's OMF's general practice, if there are more significant changes being made, to bring them to council for review and approval.
Excellent practice, thank you, and great answer. Second question, in Exhibit B, there's a change from monitoring to compliance, monitoring to compliance. The existing rules require annual reports to council on non-compliance of disposable of capital assets. I don't remember ever hearing one. Have those reports been provided, and if so, when? And if not, is that because there haven't been any instances of non-compliance or for some other reason?
The reports that would come to your attention would probably be like significant nature, comparable to like an audit finding, which we haven't had over the last couple years.
Well, I don't think I've had one at all in the 8 years I've been here. So,
Okay.
but that's because you're checking to make sure that everything's in compliance.
Right. We, one of our performance measures is to have zero audit findings. And so we do monitor ahead of time and work with the bureaus, provide them guidance and tools such as this to keep things moving smoothly in the way they're supposed to be.
So as the city controller, which I think is one of the best job titles ever, is it your responsibility to let the council know if you find something out of compliance?
If it was of a significant nature.
Okay. Under the new rules, how will the council or even the commissioner in charge be aware if a bureau is out of compliance with the rule, because it changes it from requiring the reporting to not requiring the reporting? That's in Exhibit B still. There's a sentence struck.
So you're specifically referring to the last sentence of that monitoring section?
Correct.
That's
It's
been
changed from
striked
monitoring
out.
to compliance, and it deletes, the controller will report all instances of non-compliance annually to the chief financial officer and city council.
Well, I work closely with the chief financial officer and the city auditors on a regular basis. And so the reporting mechanism would come through, not specific to this admin role, but as part of the overall financial audit of the city, where we present the findings, and they include reports on internal control.
Right, that's exactly what my chief of staff said, but their so-called CAFA is usually about 3 inches thick, and it's not something that I'm going to necessarily dive into.
Well, okay.
Would it give you heartburn to keep that sentence, maybe even just remove the word annually, that the controller will report all instances of non-compliance to the chief financial officer and city council?
It would not cause me heartburn.
Second?
So we have a motion on the table from Commissioner Fritz, a second from Commissioner Fish. Any conversation on that issue?
And I just want to echo the sentiment of my colleague and friend. And I think, actually, I'm sorry the CFO is not here to field a couple of these questions, because I think what Commissioner Fritz is getting at is the accountability tree. And since we have established an independent CFO whose job it is to report both to the CAO and directly to council, and I actually think that and the Independent Budget Office have transformed in some ways our work. I think it's important to know that the CFO feels that this language is satisfactory so that we get a referral if there is a significant accounting problem.
And I agree, Commissioner Fish, since we have had the independent CFO reporting to all members of the council, Ken Rust has given me lots of information on the CAFA in very detail, so I'm confident that the incumbent of that position would. We're looking for another one, and I just feel more comfortable if we, on Exhibit B, page 1, if we just keep a slightly amended version of the controller will report all instances of non-compliance to the chief financial officer and city council.
And can I add a legislative intent?
Sure.
Since we potentially the chief financial officer is watching this, this is going to go. This is a resolution. Excuse me. Nope. I withdraw it.
But it is an administrative rule, so if it turns out that.
Well, I think it would be appropriate for the CFO to let us know in writing if this does not accomplish the goal that you've established.
And I would like just to let you know that these changes were reviewed by Ken Russ, the CFO, by Tom Reinhardt, the Chief Administrative Officer, and by the City Attorney's Office.
Good. Well, I think I move the amendment.
Very good. And is there any public testimony on this item? You can go ahead and cool your heels, and we'll get right back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Excellent presentation. Good morning.
Good morning, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Super Watchdog X. One of my biggest concerns on the capital assets of this city is I would like to see the auditors do an audit every year on the capital assets. I want them to be watching the valuations that are putting into place. I want them to be watching the transfer of the assets. And what I'm talking about also is that when we're talking about, say, one bureau from the Water Bureau, and we transfer a property over to, say, Parks and Recreation. Now, let's just say that property was donated, and we have a certain low value on the donation. It should be, in my opinion, not transferred over to the other bureau at a market value. Now, there have been times when that has happened, and why I say that is that if we already own the property once, I don't want to see the public paying twice for the property if it transfers to another bureau. That's my biggest concern. I do not want to ever see the public paying twice for the transfer of an asset, and that is through the accounting process to understand when these properties were delivered, what was the cost at the time, what was the appraised value at the time, what was the transfer of the property over at the time. And again, my biggest concern, and that's why I think it needs to be audited every year, even if we have to hire an independent auditor above the auditors to audit this, because I think that the values on the capital assets have to be watched the closest of this city. We need to know every property that we own. We need to know what name the property is in. We need to know who's donating these properties. We need to have an analysis to where we can go down and look at every asset, when it was bought, how much it was paid for, when it was delivered, who donated the property, what is the purpose of the donation. I want to be able to analyze everything on every capital asset, right down to every number, to have a clear understanding. And that comes down to the accounting process done properly. And that has to be put in the books properly. And when they're transferred to a grant at $0, I want to be watching that very close to understand what the motivation is for that, making sure current policies are followed properly, and understand these commissioners don't have free reign on the capital assets. You don't own them. You work for us. You are our elected officials, and let me tell you something. Those are the public's property, and you don't give them away without our authorization, and I want to see data. Thank you very much. Audit everything on capital assets year after year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public testimony on this item?
No one else signed up.
Colleagues, any further questions?
I move the amendment.
Commissioner Fish moved the amendment. Commissioner Fritz, I think, already seconded the amendment. Please.
Vice versa.
I had it the other way.
Oh, was it the
Commissioner
other way?
Fritz moved
I
already.
apologize.
That's all right.
Please call the roll on the amendment.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Sorry.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The amendment is adopted to the main motion. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaly?
Aye.
Fritz?
I'd just like to add into the legislative intent, thank you, Commissioner Fish, for clarifying. If it turns out that the current city financial officer is concerned about the amendment which I just made, it was clarified that the chief administrative officer does have power to change these administrative rules. So to the extent that it then needs to be further changed, I would expect that the council would be okay on that, and that both our current financial officer and our current administrative officer would be very prompt, as they always are, in telling us about it. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
All right, the resolution is adopted as amended. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 1039, amend marijuana regulatory license procedure and requirements, business regulations.
Commissioner Udaly.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. A couple weeks ago, we had the first reading of this item. We shared concerns about the wording or the language around the 1,000-foot rule. We had a little confusion and came back with amendments to align our language with state language. And the confusion was that in the rules, the 51% change in ownership exists. So in order to reflect state language, we still do have to spell that out. So we're coming back without changing those 3 proposed amendments, but with an additional 2 amendments to clarify the city's position. And I have staff here from ONI to answer any questions. Should I read those amendments now?
Does this change from last week?
The 3 amendments from last week have not changed at all. They align our language with state language, which was the goal. And then the 2 new amendments are what I'm about to read that clarifies the city's position on this issue.
Could you please read those into
Sure.
the record, Commissioner?
So amendment number 4, add to council fines. The city has an interest in ensuring that marijuana retailers can operate, make infrastructure improvements, and sell their business to another business owner, even in cases where a new school opens within 1,000 feet of that marijuana retailer. 8, the city commits, this is a subsection. The city commits to reexamining and potentially changing its cannabis regulations if changes to Oregon Revised Statute or Oregon Administrative Rule are made that affects cannabis businesses. And amendment number 5, add to now therefore, The City of Portland urges the state to amend its rules to permit licensed marijuana retailers to continue to operate and renew their state license when a school opens within 1,000 feet of the retailer, even if the ownership of the business changes by 51% or more.
Are there seconds for?
Second.
For both of those? Commissioner Udaley moves, Commissioner Fritz seconds what we will call Udaley 4 and Udaley 5. Greetings.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Brandon Goldner, the coordinator of the cannabis program.
Christina Corsi, Cannabis Program Assistant.
Yeah, and we're here to just answer any clarifying questions you may have, but I think Commissioner Udaley explained that quite well. So yeah, the intent here is just to follow the state's rules. It sounds like there's some desire from council to see the state amend their rules in the future, and the purpose of these amendments is to just reflect that intent, that if the state were to change those rules in the future, that Portland would reevaluate its regulations and may move to change them when that happens.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Udaley. So these last two amendments came out of conversations that I had with Commissioner Udaley and our chiefs of staff in noticing that the piece about changing the ownership by 51% by state administrative rules right now requires a new application, so there's no way around that. And so the final two amendments are trying to change those things. So it's actually kind of a smaller question. Do you have any sense when the state is going to start referring to it as cannabis rather than marijuana?
Commissioner Fritz, great question. I apologize, I do not know.
Well, I mean, nobody might know, but, you know, from my learning about the program, and I know within the city we've been urged by those in the business to call it cannabis rather than marijuana because of the derivation of that second term.
Yes.
So to the extent that we can continue to use the word cannabis in our ordinances and such, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just a clarifying point that even though we call ourselves a cannabis program, you'll find in our code language we often refer to marijuana businesses, and that's because the term marijuana is defined by state law. So yes, just to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public testimony? Sorry, Commissioner Udaley, I didn't mean to.
I was just going to move that we add an emergency to this so that we can enact these changes.
So Commissioner Udaley moves that we add an emergency clause. Commissioner Fish seconds.
May I just state for the record that the purpose of the emergency is so that the businesses can get licensed as quickly as possible, and that's in the public interest.
Mayor, can I just, point of order?
Please.
My understanding, just regular order, is we would vote on the amendments first, and if it is amended, then we have an ordinance which would otherwise go to a second reading, so that the Sixth Amendment offered is an emergency clause on the main ordinance, which would allow us to adopt it today.
That is correct. In other words, the votes are final both on the amendments and on
We would
the
first
ordinance
take- yeah.
as amended, provided that we adopt the emergency clause first.
And we'd first vote on Udaley 4 and 5.
That's correct. No, we
It's 1 through 5.
legal
Yeah.
counsel, it's all of them,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
Because we
my-
left them open. We didn't actually take the votes last week. Very good. Great. Any public testimony?
Okay.
All right, good. Please call the roll on Udaley 6, which, I'm sorry, who moved the emergency clause? That was
Commissioner
Udaley. Udaley 6, the emergency clause.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
No,
Mayor?
Sorry,
We
I
didn't-
apologize. So I think we need to vote on the amendments first and
Yeah.
then the emergency clause last.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
yeah.
Very good. Okay. Let's call the roll instead on Udaley 1.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaley?
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you, Christina, for your fast footwork and everything you do for the office. Aye.
Fritz?
So I'll make my comments on the final vote. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Amendment 1 is adopted. Amendment 2, please. Please call the roll.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The amendment 2 is adopted. Please call the roll on Amendment 3.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Amendment 3 is adopted. Please call the roll on Amendment 4.
Oh, I had those, I had 4 and 5 together.
That's fine.
As one
Call
motion.
the roll on 4/5.
We did that. Sorry. Am I getting these backwards?
I was only up to 3, so I thought the roll was on the first 3 that were introduced last week.
Right.
And then 2 amendments were introduced today.
Oh, so I have to do the emergency before 4 and 5.
Nope,
Is that
do the
correct?
emergency at
No,
the very
Carla's
end.
got it. We're gonna
There were
Okay.
3 amendments introduced today, actually.
Okay, then
So-
what's the problem with
Amendment
introducing
4 and 5 are
4
a
and
package.
5?
We're taking them up as a
Four is 2 clauses, 5 is a separate clause, as I understood it.
That's fine.
No, I've got 3 motions, and the first one was from last week, number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Then the second one was from today, number 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one is the emergency clause.
Correct, in that
So there's
order.
3
Very
motions.
good.
And now we need just the final vote.
No, we haven't done 4 or 5
No,
yet.
we have not added 4 or 5. To be clear, what we just voted on was Udaley Amendments 1, 2, and 3, which were introduced last week but not voted on. Now we are going to vote on what I have called, and which I will stick with, Udaley Amendments 4 and 5 as described on the information here as Commissioner Udaley read them.
And yes, that's my understanding as
And
well.
then
Those were the
last,
amendments
we
that
will
were
vote on the
introduced today.
emergency
They're at the
clause.
front of the packet, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. So Udaley 4, call the roll.
Number 4, okay. Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. Udaley 4 is adopted. Please call the roll on Udaley 5.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The amendment is adopted. Now Udaley 6, which is the emergency clause.
I don't have this many motions.
So let me
I-
review for the record. Here's what I believe the record is. We put on the record last week 3 amendments, Udaley 1, 2, and 3. Is that correct or incorrect?
Correct, as one motion.
Thank you. Then Commissioner Udaley read number 4, add to council finds, the city has an interest in ensuring that marijuana retailers can operate, make infrastructure improvements, and sell their business to another business owner, even in the case where a new school opens within 1,000 feet of that retailer, marijuana retailer. And Section 8, the city commits to reexamining and potentially changing its cannabis regulations if changes to Oregon revised statute or Oregon administrative rule are made that affects cannabis businesses. I have that as Udaley 4. Then Udaley 5, I have as add to now therefore 2. The city of Portland urges the state to amend its rules to permit licensed marijuana retailers to continue to operate and renew their state license when a school opens within 1,000 feet of the retailer, even if the ownership of the business changes by 51% or more. Is that correct?
So we figured out the mystery. The 4 and 5 were read together, but there was only one motion and 1 second for 4 and 5. So if we can get a motion for Amendment 5 as
Very good.
described. and a
So
second-
moved.
Fish
Well,
moves.
Second.
Udaley seconds. 5 is now on the table. Please call the roll on Amendment 4.
No, 5.
We already did 4.
We are backtracking. Oh my God, I need a cocktail. Okay, please call the roll on Amendment 5.
I already have a roll on that one as well.
Oh.
Did we already vote on that?
We've done.
Right.
we've
Okay,
done
good. No,
5.
then we have one more.
We've done 5.
We have one more, which is the emergency clause. Please call the roll.
I already have, we did a roll on that.
It can be redundant, that's fine.
Let's take a redundant roll, and then we have an
It won't be the
abundance of
first time or
time.
the last
order.
time.
Roll on the emergency clause. Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Yes.
Wheeler.
Aye. That amendment 2, comma, is adopted.
Now the main motion.
Now the main motion is adopted.
ordinance.
Please call the roll.
Saltzman.
Aye.
Udaley.
Thank you again, ONI staff, for your hard work on this. It's been quite a year, and I'm very pleased with the progress that we've made. And as we heard from industry people when we introduced this, they are as well. Aye.
Fritz.
Well, colleagues, lest our 2 new members to the council this year feel this is strange. No, this was pretty much how every one of the cannabis discussions went in the fall of 2015 and 2016. I lost count of how many hearings we had, never mind how many amendments and votes we had. And we're all trying to do the right thing. We're trying to support this new emerging business and to treat cannabis businesses to the extent practical and appropriate, the same as any other business, subject to OLC, the Oregon Liquor Control Council, et cetera. This particular package, I appreciate Commissioner Udaly bringing it now because it's similar to what we did with medical and retailers in the fall of last year. And what we're trying to do is to make these businesses that locate within 1,000, that are already located where a school then moves in within 1,000 feet. Any other non-conforming use would be allowed to change ownership. So we're going to be encouraging the state to change that regulation. I'm so proud of this program. It was fascinating to me to be in charge of much of the discussions on it. Thanks not only to Brandon and Christina, but also to Teresa Marchetti, Victor Salinas, and Amalia Alaconda Morris, who, with the council at the time, including Mayor Hales and Commissioner Novick, noodled through endlessly about this. And I feel really proud and happy that we're doing so well. I read on the Oregon Health Authority press release about the cannabis education yesterday that there are more cannabis outlets in Oregon than there are Starbucks, which is quite startling to me. I do think we do need to do more education on the dangers of youth using cannabis. Of course, they're not supposed to until they're 21, but even up to 25, it can be damaging to brains, and we need to continue to get that information out. Thank you also, Commissioner Udaly, for having your staff from Development Services working on this. It's really great that that partnership continues, and Mitch Nichols and Mika Keenan, I know, have done a lot of work on this. And I'm glad that although we're allowing the businesses to open sooner, they do need to be in compliance after 1 year, which makes me feel more comfortable. Thanks to the Cannabis Policy Oversight Team, one of my favorite acronyms, and Claire Adamsick in my staff, and just everybody who's been involved. This has been a very positive process, and I hope it's going to continue to have positive outcomes for our community, with just a small mention of the tax, which of course is going to fund really great things right in our community. Aye.
Fish.
Well, Carla, first, thanks to you for keeping us on the straight and narrow. And thanks to the mayor for scrupulously following Robert's rules. And this has been a good discussion. And I think the underlying message is this council is committed to streamlining the regulatory process and cutting red tape. And I appreciate the collaborative way we're doing this, and I appreciate the leadership from the Bureau and the commissioner in charge. Aye.
Wheeler.
Glad this is over. Thank you, Commissioner Udaly, and thanks to your team and to the office for working so hard on these issues. I think this has been a really excellent collaborative effort, and it is a great example of the city listening to the needs of the industry and the community. And I know that there was a lot of compromise and a lot of discussion and a lot of wordsmithing and a lot of meetings where people sought that rational center, and you found it. And so I'm very proud to support this amendment. The amendment, the ordinance is adopted as amended multiple times. Thank you. We are adjourned until 2 p.m.
Well done.